on the other team.
Welcome to the Knicks Wall Podcast. We are about a week out from training camp, so there's much to discuss. At the same time, there's not too much to discuss, but we'll let you decide. I am Dean Joannou, your host. I'm joined by one of our writers, Pat. Pat, how you doing?
I'm good. Excited to talk about training camp.
Absolutely. You know, another grueling Tibbs training camp is ahead of us, supposedly grueling. I don't know how much I buy into his hard ass reputation with the fact that he decides who's playing on day one of training camp, and it doesn't seem like there's usually too much growth from there.
Yeah, we'll see if it's truly a meritocracy, like he says, because it didn't seem like that last season, but here we are.
Yeah, it most certainly did not. And we've had some suggestions from Begley and other writers that Tibbs is going into this season with a clean slate with regards to his roster decisions. And I just don't know why we bother. Like, what are the chances that he'll decide someone like Evan Fournier isn't a rotation player when last year he had all the evidence in the world that, at least he wasn't a starter or the best option as a starter with that particular lineup. I don't want to just blindly put down Evan Fournier, but he had the data in front of him. He had the lineup data. He knew, what happened when Emmanuel quickly was on the court more often. And that wasn't something that he really seemed to take into consideration. Evan Fournier started every game that he played with the New York Knicks last year. There's a lot that you can say about consistency being key, but to me, that's just a lack of effort in making adjustments. Making adjustments is a huge part of being the coach.
I agree with you on that. I don't really see how he changes. I mean, we talk about it in our Slack all the time. Like he's a 64-year-old man. Like, what's changing? People that age usually don't change their ways. But you bring up Fournier, and I think that it's gonna be hard to get him out of the starting lineup. That's just me personally, because he's probably the most game ready shape player that we have now. Like, you were just in Europe. He was playing Eurobasket. He took France to the final, They lost to Spain, but Fournier is basically in game shape, And I guess his main competition for that starting spot is Quentin Grimes, who's probably also in really good shape just because, he plays Summer League and he looked really well. But the reason why I think Grimes is a actual threat to take his starting spot is because the Knicks, according to all these reports you saw summer, they refused to include him in any trades for, Donovan Mitchell. So if the Knicks are really that high on Quentin Grimes, what's not to say that he can actually come in and take the starting job from Evan Fournier?
Well, the Knicks were really high on Obi Toppin on draft night, and he went 8th overall, and we have not seen, despite the front office most likely being quite invested in Obi because they made that pick, we haven't seen that matter to Tibbs. And I'm not talking about that, Obi should have just willy-nilly been thrown into the starting lineup over Randall. That's not what we at the Knicks Wall have been asking for all this time. We've asked to see Obi Toppin and Julius Randle play together.
Right.
Nerlens Noel and Mitchell Robinson, injury-prone players, they both missed plenty of time. And so when we would have only one of those two available and the only other centers were Taj and Jericho Sims, Tibbs played Taj and Jericho Sims only. Like, there were, I think Evan pulled the stat that there were 20 games that Obi and Randall appeared on the court together, but we know because we watched that would only happen for 1 or 2 minutes at a time. Like, that was an overlap situation in the fourth quarter when it would happen. And so I just think that, you can theorize all you want about the level of investment that the coaching staff has in players or the front office, like someone like Quentin Grimes. But if on opening night, Quentin Grimes comes off the bench, he's in that backup 2 role, and he only plays for 12 minutes, you shouldn't be surprised. Like, I want people to be prepared for the idea that the rotation will be the exact same thought process as the last, couple months of last season, not even as the start of last season, because Tibbs only adapted once the team was pretty much out of the playoff race. And I don't really find that he adapted. People were injured. Like, even then, he didn't play guys as much as he could or should have. Guys like Grimes, quickly, Obi Toppin. So with all that being said, I'm just going to preview what I think the Knicks roster will be based on what I know about Tibbs and everything that we know so far. You tell me if you disagree, and then we'll break it down. So we know that Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and probably Mitchell Robinson are going to start. There is something to be said about Isaiah Hartenstein's fit in that starting lineup. The nature of Mitchell Robinson is that he will miss some games. So we are going to see Hartenstein with that lineup at some point. And I think it could work really well. I'm kind of equally high on the two of them, those two centers. And I think that they both have a lot to offer. So that's not something that stresses me out. I'm excited to see those different looks. So if I had to predict it, I am going to predict on the record that Fournier starts at the 2.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, just for the record, like I like to be right, and I think that that's where we're headed, but I hope it's Grimes, and it should be. But I think we're going to see Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. I think we're going to see a bench lineup of Derrick Rose, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, and Isaiah Hartenstein. The way it stands, we're just getting even more rumblings that the Knicks might make a trade before the season. When? Like, training camp starts in a week. I don't believe that. I don't think that anyone should. If it happens, great, but there's no reason to believe that it could happen. And so as things stand, the way I just laid out, that would leave Cam Reddish once again on the outside looking in.
Right.
Tibbs' job, I'll say this for the Tibbs sympathizers, it's not on him to showcase Cam Reddish for a new contract. Of course not. But I think that he's the only true 3 that we have at 6'8", 6'9" with his length. So you need to sneak him in there. The obvious person to take out is Fournier to make that work. But, Derrick Rose would work all the same. But like, Knicks fans, like, we want what we want as far as like a youth movement. But we know that the Knicks play really well when Rose is on the floor. Mm-hmm. So like, if he's on the roster, we're not going to be mad that he's playing, but we're still going to be saying that we would like them to find a way to clear up minutes for Quickley. So do you have any thoughts on the way that I laid it out, and do you have any disagreements?
No, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Just on the Cam Reddish thing, I think Cam, like you said, Cam is the only true 3. And I think the Knicks are really stressed out at wing. Like, you look up and down the roster, there isn't much, but I feel like going into training camp, minutes are up for grabs. Like, I don't think anybody's like, besides the guys you like outline, I think there's room for guys to earn time. Like, there's guys that look good, like Farhan. He looked good in Summer League. I know people don't put too much stock into things like Summer League, but like you say, that Cam is the only true small forward that the Knicks have, and they're really stressed at that position. And with guys like Derrick Rose and Mitchell Robinson, like you said, the nature of those guys is that they will miss time. So I think that some of those guys on the outside looking in, like Cam Reddish, I think they have the opportunity to crack the rotation once those guys inevitably go down. Because I think, like you say, I like Derrick Rose. Who doesn't like Derrick Rose? We all love Derrick Rose, but you have to expect him to get hurt. You just have to. He had 2 ankle surgeries last season, and he was out since basically February. So you can't really expect much from him going in. Even though, knowing Tibbs, we know that he's gonna probably grind D Rose until he's out again.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have to. Like Derrick Rose, he may get injured, but even if he didn't get injured, we hope he doesn't. He shouldn't play every game. That's a given.
Right. Right.
Tibbs does not, other than with Kemba Walker, he hasn't shown that he'll hold people out of whole games, to spare their health. And I think with Kemba, he didn't care much for Kemba, so that's why he was willing to do it. He just slotted Kemba in there because, that's what he wanted to do on day one, and he doesn't make adjustments. You mentioned Ferran Hunt, and I loved what I saw from Ferran Hunt in Summer League. I am on the lower end of optimism about Cam Reddish. So I don't view them that differently in terms of do they deserve minutes? Because I think they have similar abilities. And obviously Cam has more pedigree. He's a very smooth player. He's got the shooting potential. But my issue with Cam Reddish is like the footwork, the not getting set on his threes. All those threes he took, I understand that he was trying to showcase himself, earn minutes in Tibbs' rotation. But to me, it's a red flag that he thought that that's the way he was going to earn the minutes. Like he would dribble behind the 3-point line, to try to get himself a look and kind of rush it, and then shoot with his feet facing sideways, clicking together, landing weirdly. He doesn't have that like repetitive jumper. It still looks smooth because his mechanics up top are smooth, and he's long and he's lanky. But like Cam Reddish has been a theoretical player for a long time. He was very, very up and down, and mostly down at Duke. His NBA career, he had like a 42-point game with Atlanta last year, but they were 11 points per possession, or 11 points per 100 possessions worse when he was out there. So there's not a lot of real evidence that Cam needs to be playing. And that's why I think, well, not that Tibbs looks like at numbers so much, but with the guys we have, I don't think Cam Reddish will play. And Tibbs wants to play 9, and we laid out 11 who like the theory suggests that they will and they have to play. And after that is when you get into Deuce McBride, who I think we're going to see a lot of Westchester MVP type of stuff from Deuce McBride. Who am I forgetting? Jericho Sims. Again, situational. If a center gets hurt, he'll play. Because once again, Tibbs won't play Obi at center if Randall's at the 4. This stuff that Tibbs loves Obi, he wants to give him more minutes. Emmanuel Quickley is going to have a bigger year. Show me that, because there's no evidence of that. There's none. You have to jump in circles, jump through hoops to convince yourself that that's the case. And I don't begrudge anyone who is just naturally optimistic and hopeful about things, because I'm very optimistic too about the Knicks, but you also have to be pragmatic about the situation. Like, why would Tibbs at 64, he's going to turn 65 on January 17th, 2023. Why would he be a different kind of coach this year? I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's good to be optimistic, but there's too much evidence against it. He's going to play his guys. I think the best thing that the front office did was taking away some of those pieces that he's super attached to. Taj walking, Noel getting traded, like Alec Burks, all those guys going to Detroit and stuff. Like, I feel like that's the best thing that the Knicks did, because like it forces his hand. Like, all right, like you don't have these guys that you're married to now, so figure it out. And I think that's really important, because it's like if those guys are still around, for a fact that Alec Burks would be right behind Jalen Brunson, and he'd be a combo guard sort of thing, like we saw last season. I don't know what loyalty Thibodeau has to these guys. I guess it's because he knows them and he trusts them. But the thing is like you say, he has these young players that, it's like he does the opposite of what the front office is trying to do, because they got rid of these guys and they're like, look, you saw what Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin did at the end of the season. They went out with a bang. I think Obi had a week where he had a 30-point game, 2 20-point games, and a 40-point game. Like, I think he eclipsed his career high in points all in the same week 3 times. But that's besides the point. It's like, look, you see what you have, so use it. You know what I'm saying? And the thing with not playing Obi with Randall, it makes no sense. I wrote an article last year where I outlined how it works. So it works. I don't know what he's afraid of. I guess he has to have a big man in the paint for whatever reason, but it's just things that there's a lot working against being optimistic with Tibbs changing.
And the thing for me is that Tibbs has this like very entrenched reputation as being this basketball junkie. And when he was when he was out of the league for a short time after his departure from the Wolves, departure meaning they fired him for cause, for good reason, not for cause, like he, did something scandalous. But I would argue that playing Jeff Teague over Ricky Rubio that much was scandalous, but I digress. They said that he went on this tour of other teams' practice facilities and their practices, and he got to see how other teams do stuff. And he came back on the exact same type of time. Like, I don't have, where's the growth from Tibbs? The only growth that I can really think of is that he has his team shoot a lot of threes. He is very open about 3-point shooting, but like doesn't have really the offensive sets to create the best possible 3-point looks. He just wants to yell at Quick, shoot the ball. I'll yell at Fournier, shoot the ball. And, it is what it is with Tibbs. If someone else was deciding the rotations for Tibbs, I don't know that I'd have so much of a problem with him, but that is a huge part of his job. And he doesn't seem like the type of person to defer to others or, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it needs to be a meritocracy. You have to earn it. Like, if you see somebody's playing well, you have to play them. You can't just like play the guys that you know or the guys that you like, just because you're comfortable. You can't do that. You can't have any success. Like, you're not gonna have any success like that. And that's the thing with Tibbs, and like they want, like, he's trying to win. Like that's what he was trying to do last season, I guess. But the thing is, like, dude, it's not working. What you're doing is not working. So you have to make these adjustments. And it's like, I guess we could move on from this, but it's just, this is our main point of contention. Like, will he use the players that he has, at his disposal, like, to the best of their ability? Like Obi Toppin should be out there. Like, he should be out there mixing it up with every single lineup, because Obi's a machine. Like, I mean, Obi's your guy. You're the captain of the Obi train. So my thing is, like, and you see it. Everybody sees it. Like, Obi's motor does not stop. He's always running around the court. He's always pointing his finger up in the air. He's always looking for an alley. He's always looking to be involved. And Obi isn't a stationary player like Julius Randle is. Obi's constantly moving around. So the idea that, they wouldn't work because I guess it's small ball makes no sense. And it's just like, how do I put this? I just want to, basketball is positionless, like guys play all, like, it gets all jumbled up once they're on the court anyway. So my thing is, it's like, just play the best players that you have. Don't be married to guys that you're comfortable with, because obviously it didn't work last season. And like, once your hand was forced, you saw the good things that you already had. You know what I'm saying? Like, It took injuries and a bunch of other stuff for him to say, all right, now I guess I got to play.
It took 7 guys in COVID protocols for Grimes to play. What did Grimes do with his first start? He hit 7 threes. Right. People want to give Tibbs credit for keeping Grimes ready. Grimes was ready. He was a good shooter before Tibbs, gave him tough love, and we needed a good shooter, and he's a good defender, and we needed a good defender. But it took everyone having COVID, half the team having COVID, for him to get that chance. Deuce got a chance during COVID, and he had that great game with like 15 points, 9 assists, no turnovers against the Rockets. Mm-hmm. Great. He didn't get another opportunity because Tibbs wasn't going to be creative to get him one. Tibbs was like, okay, now I know that if disaster strikes and the whole team is home, then maybe you can play. But now I know. I'll keep that in my back pocket. Mm-hmm. Never look in my pocket again. I'm going to leave it in my pants when it goes through the laundry. Never again. So you mentioned Obi. I love to talk about Obi. I hope to fulfill my quota on every podcast of getting at least some words in about my favorite player. Should be yours too. But, if RJ Barrett is your taste, if Emmanuel Quickly is your taste, I don't, Jalen Brunson, teach his own. There's no basketball reason that Obi and Julius Randle can't play together. It is nice to have 48 minutes of elite rim protection. Like, that's what the Knicks seek. Last year with Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel. This year with Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitchell Robinson. These are elite rim protectors. This year we've got 2 of the 15 so best. Last year was the same, even though Nerlens wasn't healthy very often. So with Obi, people are saying, oh, well, he wants to play Obi more. And people at the same time understand that Obi's not going to play the 5. So it's like, oh, well, Julius Randle, his minutes can come down. Maybe he gets 29 and Obi gets 19. Show me. Because to do that, it's not just about like, who does Tibbs value more? It's the rigid rotation. Julius Randle is not going to come out 7 minutes into the first quarter to get Obi that share of minutes. Julius Randle will play until there's 50 seconds left in the first, without fail. If play doesn't stop in the last minute, Obi Toppin will stand at the scorer's table until the start of the second quarter. This is just our reality. Tom Thibodeau is not going to get creative. I remember times I would tweet like, oh man, like this is so exciting that Tibbs is bringing out RJ earlier so that he can put him back in with the second unit. And people reply to me and correct me, rightfully. They're like, oh, actually, like, this guy's injured and this is just his only way of getting RJ back at the start of the second quarter and playing him the whole second quarter. So every time I want to, jump through hoops to give Tibbs some credit, he remains, in my opinion, the worst rotational manager in the league. If there are other people looking for that title or other people that, fans suggest, I would like to look into their records on it. But as someone who watches the Knicks every single night that they play, I see it and I don't like it. Emmanuel Quickley, for example, people are saying, I think Begley wrote that he's going to have a bigger role or that it's anticipated that he will. Emmanuel Quickley is going to come in at the very end of the first quarter, and he's going to come in at the very end of the third quarter. Oftentimes, he'll come in with a minute left in the third quarter and then play the whole fourth. That's counterproductive to me because then you're not getting the best Emmanuel Quickley to end the game, even though he is our best fourth quarter performer probably. Has been. So it's just nonsense. It's like what Hornacek would do with Frank, like put him in with 6 minutes left in the third. You're going to play the rest of the game and guard the other team's best player. I am not satisfied with that. You have to be creative here. Obi's really good. When he's on the court, the Knicks are really, really good. We went, I don't know the end of season numbers, but I have it in my head, this one number from like the middle of the season where when Obi was on the court, the Knicks ran the 8th highest frequency of transition. And when Julius was on the court, it was 21st. And so we can talk about in a vacuum who's better, but I don't really like the word better. The Knicks are better when Obi's on the court and not Randall. Not even talking about them playing together. They play faster. They move the ball better when Obi's on the court. I also don't think it should be discounted that they're more fun to watch when Obi's on the court. Obi's a more fun player to watch than Randall. The fans prefer Obi Toppin. The numbers prefer Obi Toppin. So this is not about me saying Julius Randle is bad and Obi Toppin is good. There is nuance here. And Obi Toppin, in my view, I know a lot of people agree with me, should be the Knicks starting power forward. Julius Randle might have a lot more utility in a different situation.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you look at the 10 games Obi started when those games Julius couldn't play, I think he averaged something like 20 points a game. So it's there. His ability is there. And like you say, the Knicks invested in Obi Toppin for a reason. And it shows, it shows. But, it's like you say, Dibbs is married to guys. And his rotations are so predictable. It was one of the things we screamed about the most in our own private chats. Like, yo, this is what's gonna happen. Like you say, he's gonna play him the whole fourth quarter, rest him 6 minutes, bring him in to finish the half. Taj Gibson, for his great veteran presence, everybody knows the team loved him. Like, he was hindering Obi Toppin's development just because Stibbs had to have him out there. So the one thing I'm truly optimistic about is Obi getting consistently 25, hopefully, sometimes 30 minutes a night, just because, there isn't another power forward besides him on the roster. And, you can't, I know this is going to grind Julius into the ground, but, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Obi Toppin. So I'm optimistic about that.
But where do those minutes come from? Because if it's coming out of Randall's minutes, once again, I need to see it to believe it. Like, it would be totally reasonable to play Julius Randle 28 minutes and to play Obi 20 minutes. And 20 minutes guaranteed as a baseline for Obi would be a huge improvement. He finished the season averaging 17 minutes per game, but that was highly skewed by the end of season when Randle wasn't playing and Obi was finally getting the minutes he deserved. And by the way, what did Obi do with those minutes? Did he have one bad game after he started to start games?
No, he absolutely matched the whole way through.
Yeah, I'll grant any skeptic, I will grant them the fact that the sample size is pretty small, but when has Obi not taken the opportunity and ran with it? He always does. And against the Thunder in that game earlier in the year, I think sometime in December, Julius Randle was out. Obi started. Obi played 45 minutes, something like that. And he put up 19, 6, and 6. The Knicks lost. Obi could have played better in that game. But Tom Thibodeau went out in the presser afterwards and he said, he was asked about Julius Randle and Obi and that situation. And he says, it's like in football, everybody wants to see the backup quarterback until he actually has to play. I thought that undermining his player in Obi Toppin in that fashion was one of the worst things Tibbs did last year. And I found last year's season from Tibbs to be an unequivocal disaster class. Most of us are in agreement with that at the Knicks Wall. I think we all are. I don't think we have anyone who's not, so I don't need to be so political about it. But I don't know where the minutes are going to come from. Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein should combine for 48 minutes. Like, they're both worth 24 minutes at least. So if they're both healthy, I don't see it. One of them will be injured sometimes. I still think Tibbs will default to Jericho Sims to play the balance of the center minutes. But maybe we'll see Obi. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of Obi. But with a fully healthy roster, I don't think people should be surprised if Julius has it going some nights and he gets 39, 40, 41 minutes and Obi is locked into 7, like sometimes he was last year, 7, 8, 9 minutes. I do think that'll happen. And Obi Toppin is my favorite player who's ever played for the Knicks. And I work really hard to be optimistic about the outlook there. But I got to a point where when we were discussing Donovan Mitchell trades, I was resigned to the fact that Obi was going to Utah because I was like, hey, they're rebuilding. They have a 34-year-old head coach. I'll watch Jazz. I won't go to Utah, but I'll stay up till 1 a.m. and I'll watch the end of the Jazz game because Obi Toppin will be on the court. You can't watch the end of a Knicks game and expect Obi on the court. With Tibbs rotations as rigid as they are, you know exactly when who is going to be on the court. I knew when I could go take a break and go fold some laundry, anything. I know when I could do that because I know when the entertainment value, when the product was something I didn't want to see. I knew exactly what minutes to tune into.
Yeah, look, I feel you on that, but it's like you can't ignore. I mean, I just think just Obi being the one other true power forward on the roster, I think that plays to his advantage. I don't know. Maybe this is just me being optimistic, even though I'm so pessimistic about this coach. But look, I'm just looking right now. I'm looking at Obi's game logs. Like, his last 2 games were insane. Insane. Look, the last game versus Toronto, he scored 42 points on 57% shooting. And he hit 6 3-pointers that game. So my thing is like, look, all right, so obviously he had 6 3-pointers 2 games in a row. Versus Washington, the previous game, he scored 35 points and hit another 6 threes. So it's like, you cannot have that on the bench just because, like, well, I mean, I guess you got to go with the hot hand. Obviously, you go with the hot hand. But you can't just bank on that every night. It's like, all right, I have a guy who's liable to go off in Obi Toppin at any moment. You can't just be like, oh, well, Julius is here. And, he's our former all-star, most improved player. You can't – I don't think the Knicks could go into the season like that because I don't think there's any real expectations for this team to win anything or be like, even with the addition of Jalen Brunson. So my thing is, I think what's most important is continuing to figure out what works best going forward. I feel like that is – and – Tibbs the age is not on his side, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the hand he's been dealt, like this isn't the team that's going to get him the championship. It's simply not. So for him to just try to jam Julius Randle in there or whatever it is that he's thinking, it just makes no sense going forward, And I just feel like you can't ignore what Obi did with his opportunities last season, in that last, 2 weeks of the season, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I would tattoo his every frame of Obi Toppin's highlight reel from that 42-point game on my body if I had the space or the money for it. I really would. That was one of the most beautiful things I've ever watched. The season was lost. There was no real significance of that game, but you see what he does when he knows that there's no one looking over his shoulder. He's a great player. So I understand people talking about the sample size and saying, oh, I mean, anyone can do that in the last game of the season. He was playing the Raptors. The Raptors have really good defenders. And also, I know the sample size is small, but I can't do anything about that. If you crush every opportunity you are given, it's supposed to be a given that you get more opportunities. That's not how it works with the Knicks. It's really not. And so, to transition here, I think that we should talk about what do we think the Knicks closing lineup is going to be and what would we like it to be. So I will start and suggest that the closing lineup will be Jalen Brunson, Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. For all of Tibbs' faults with how little he plays Quickley, underutilizing him during the meat of the game, he closes with him very often, and Quickley is our most proven closer. Jalen Brunson is a heck of a closer. I'm excited. Him in fourth quarters. Maybe Jalen Brunson's presence as that ball handling closing point guard will mean that we see Grimes at that 2 spot to close games sometimes rather than Quickley. If Tibbs use Brunson and Quickley as redundant. But the lineup that I would like to see close some games, this is a pipe dream. This would take injuries or a coaching change. Johnny Bryant, what's up? Would be Jalen Brunson, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, RJ Barrett, and Obi Toppin. I would fall over myself running to the TV to see that. I'll say it again. Brunson and Quickley backcourt, Grimes and RJ at the forward spots with Obi Toppin at center. I think that group has the athleticism and the youth to defend. I think defensive questions are helped a little bit by the fact that transition frequency will be so high. The transition frequency on offense will be high. Grimes, RJ, and Quickley are all dogs on defense. People underestimate Quickley on defense.
Yeah.
He's one of the better guys in the league at the guard spot, at closing out on shooters, on pull-up jump shots, especially in the mid-range. He's got that 6'10" wingspan. I think that lineup can defend. I think that lineup can score. And I think that the fans would love to see that lineup. And at a certain point, when you don't give us a championship, you give us a couple playoff appearances in the last 20 years, what the fans want to see should matter. I'm sorry. I'm not one of those people that's like, this is disgusting that they're booing Julius Randle. If I'm at the stadium, I'm not going to boo, but I'm not going to begrudge fans who do. Fans want to see what they want to see. The ticket prices are absurd. Ticket prices are insane. If people pay to go to the game, they want to see the best possible product. Hey, I say more power to them.
You know what's crazy? You mentioned the ticket prices. I saw a tweet that I guess the Knicks open up in Memphis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's why Memphis tweeted at the
Knicks. And I think the nosebleeds are like $20 to get into MSG. It'll cost you like $100 and some dollars just to sit in the blue seats. So it's you're right. It matters what the fans want to see at this point, because you're charging an insane price just to get us in there. And, it's like, we want to see what we want to see, But as far as your closing lineups, I love them. I think Grimes and RJ are going to be hell for teams because like RJ's contract is incentive laden. So, he's going to be a beast on defense. And I think
that incentive, you should put it out there. He goes from $107 million on this contract over the lifetime of it to 120 if he makes an all-NBA or an all-defensive team. Ceilings on RJ Barrett, he could absolutely make an all-NBA team on this contract. But all defense he can make this year. I think that's within RJ's control. I don't know anyone who doesn't want $13 million. And I also don't think that RJ needs a cash incentive to D up. RJ's a dog. Like, we don't have to. What we love about our young players is that when have we ever questioned that they're working as hard as possible in practice, that they're giving hustle? Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Quentin Grimes, Obi Toppin, Deuce McBride, even if he's on the outside looking in with the rotation. The Knicks, to their credit, Walt Perrin, or, the Knicks have a murky front office structure, but whoever's deciding on these draft picks have drafted very high character, hardworking players, and we will give them their flowers on that.
Yeah, that's the one thing I never take away from them. They draft well. I've been happy with the draft the last 3-4 years. Like, I've loved everybody we've picked. And I think they've done a great job. And like you say, these are high character players. These guys come to work. These guys, like, people say, oh, New York has that lunch pail attitude. These guys have it. And these guys, I mean, you see these guys earning every day. But yeah, back to your closing lineups. I love it. I think people might say, oh, concerns with maybe Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley, being I guess on the smaller side. But Emmanuel quickly, like you say, like he's underrated defensively, and he's a combo guard. So he could guard two positions. Like you said, RJ and Grimes, on the perimeter, they're gonna be absolute beasts. And Obi, listen, Obi's motor doesn't stop. For whatever people think his flaws are defensively, like he's going to be there and he's going to try 100% of the time, every time. So, and like you say, the transition frequency. Once the Knicks get running, they can keep up with anybody. So, I mean, I love your closing lineups. There's obviously going to be some variations, but as far as closing, like you said, Emmanuel quickly is a great closer, and he's come out clutch a bunch of times, and we saw what Jalen Brunson is in the playoffs and stuff like that. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
I love barring anybody having a hot hand, I think that is the closing lineup.
Now, speaking of hot hands, Julius Randle will be on the court. He will think that he has the hot hand. And the Knicks offense will devolve to running through Julius Randle again. In my opinion, I'm not rosy on the fact that, just because Brunson's here, Brunson's going to get everybody organized. I really don't see it. And I think Julius Randle is a liability to the Knicks crunch time offense. He's had some great moments in the clutch, but just his presence on the court means that we will not be zipping the ball around. I don't care about people's insistence that Randle is going to change and he's going to adapt, and he's working on the floater so that he can thrive in the short roll. If Julius Randle gets the ball, maybe he'll give it up after 5 seconds instead of 11 now, but that's still stopping the ball. When Obi catches the ball with no clear advantage, he swings it and he sprints to the other corner. That's basketball. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Maybe Obi Toppin has the energy for that because he's getting 13 minutes. Maybe Julius Randle is gassed, but that's not my concern. I'm going to evaluate what I see, and I see a better basketball team when you have the dunk contest champion and the best transition scorer, most efficient transition scorer. And what does Obi shoot in transition? 98.7%. For real. It's unbelievable. So, again, in my fantasy world where Randle doesn't close, even if I take away my bias toward Obi Toppin, I'd rather see those four guys at the 1 through 4 with Mitchell Robinson or Isaiah Hartenstein for a closing lineup, just for how it would run. Let's say that the basis of your offense is a Brunson and it's a Brunson and Mitchell Robinson pick and roll, and the 2 through 4 is quickly Grimes and Barrett. That's an unstoppable offense. Not unstoppable maybe, but that's a great offense, and I think it's one that will hum compared to the one where Julius Randle needs his elbow touch and his jab, jab, jab. And the issue with Randle last year was he wasn't even holding the ball to take that go-to mid-range pull-up that he had developed. He had lost confidence in that shot, and rightfully so. He was shooting 29% from the mid-range. So he lost confidence in that shot. So instead, it was just him catching the ball, probing, while everybody stood around. And that was not easy on the eyes, and it was not reflected well in the box score.
See, that's the thing. Like you say, I guess Julius stops the offense from moving around. Like you say, with those other guys, there's constant movement. There are, well, at least that's our perception, that they'll be constantly moving around. Like you said, if Obi doesn't have an open shot or a lane, he zips the ball and runs across the court, just to get a better position. I feel like if Julius Randle is stopping this is why I think it's good that the Knicks have Jalen Brunson, because I think that he's gonna be more. Despite what a lot of people think, I think Brunson will be more ball dominant, just because he's the point guard. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Julius Randle will have how do I put this? How do I say it? I think he'll be more free on offense than having to worry about creating for other guys. Because the thing is, in the past, even last year, there wasn't a threat at the lead guard position for the Knicks. Now the Knicks have that. Julius Randle doesn't have to be Mr. Point Forward every time. So I think that, he could revert to maybe to moving around, just keep like you say, these guys want to move around. Like the Knicks wanna, like the best thing for the Knicks is to just keep moving, just keep moving the ball, keep like moving around on the court, just I guess like, because since the Knicks are always moving and they have young legs, like they can tire a team out, and that's what I think is the most underrated thing about the Jalen Brunson thing. Even though a lot of people are pessimistic and think, oh yeah, Thibs is gonna lean on Julius, which we'll probably see a lot of the time. But I think when push comes to shove, like we'll see a lot of like movement, a lot of like, okay, where Julius is not like always having to create for others. You know?
I think that Tibbs has a lot of faith in Jalen Brunson. They're practically family, and I'm not saying that Jalen Brunson's not going to take is not going to take charge. I love Jalen Brunson. I love that signing. I'm very critical of Leon Rose, but I love that signing no matter what the process was to get us there. I just think that the two things are not mutually exclusive. Like Brunson being around, I don't think it's a black and white relationship with how much Randle will control the ball. It'll be less than before, but Julius, there's muscle memory involved. This is 2 straight years of being the number one option. Last year, maybe towards the end, he became more of a 1B to RJ when RJ took the reins from him. Like he wasn't given those reins. He took them. And I just think that Julius Randle knows how to play a certain way. Once again, I do not hate Julius Randle. I don't think Julius Randle is bad. I think that this Knicks team that I project, we can go into projections another time, but I project this Knicks team to come in 11th. I think they definitely could make the play-in. Teams get injured, but I think team quality-wise, talent for this year, they're probably the 10th or 11th best team. And so on a team like that, when you have a guy that you drafted 8th overall a couple of years ago, and the numbers tell you that the team plays better with him than Randle, and the fans tell you they'd rather see him than Randle, aside from showcasing Randle for a trade, I don't see the purpose of continuing to feature him, to have him in closing lineups, even to have him starting. I also predict that the boos will start early for Randle. They're not going to be fair. Of course, they're not going to be fair, but we know the deal. Julius Randle dribbles the ball off of his foot 4 minutes and 10 seconds into the first quarter. He will hear boos. And if he's 0 for 7 halfway through the second quarter, he'll hear a lot of boos. That just is the reality here. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong.
Yeah. Look, I just feel like, I get that, maybe some people within the Knicks probably still have a lot of faith in Julius, and that's understandable. I get it. Like he was incredible the year before last, but the thing is like they need to be realistic and and I don't know how you tell this to an NBA player. I don't know how somebody goes up to him and says, "Hey, you're not him." Like, we need to figure out how to make this more conducive to other players on the team. Like it can't just always be going through you. I don't know how you say that to somebody. I don't know how they work that out. I don't even know if that's even been a conversation. But like you say, like you just mentioned muscle memory, and I get like a lot of the times when things aren't going your way, you revert back to the things that you know. But I feel like somebody has to, set the tone early. Like, look, this is not gonna be ISO Julius again. It's not. We have a point guard. We have young guys that like to run and move around. Like, we can't just wait for you to waste 10 seconds on the elbow and you decide to pass it out because you don't want to take a bad fadeaway. So I feel like that conversation needs to be had. You know what I'm saying? And he's a grown man. He's making $100 million a year. Like, you have to do what's best for the team, and what's best for the team is not ISO Ju, And like I think Julius is a good basketball player. He is good at basketball. He is a great player, but he's just not, I guess, what the Knicks have built them up to be.
Yeah, his contract is not as bad as
not at all.
The worst pessimist thing. You did say just now $100 million a year. If that was the case, we'd be in a lot of trouble. And yeah, we should be funneling that money to Aaron Judge. I think personally, even though I'm not much of a baseball fan, it makes me sick that they might not pay him. But yeah, Julius Randle's contract is not bad. Like, even Yeah,
Not
even
at
as a
all.
pessimist, like he's at least an average level of starting power forward. He's probably like the 12th to 13th best in a vacuum. But this situation is not a
No.
situation that will make him look that way, or the numbers won't reflect that. And the disappearing of the jump shot, if the jump shot isn't there, he's not a fit. He's just not. Because even if Obi is shooting 3% from downtown, he's doing other stuff that helps the offense flow. Randall actively prevents the offense from flowing, in my view. And he also inadvertently does by missing his jump shots.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. And even if he's halfway decent, you know what I'm saying? Even if the Knicks down the road decide, oh, okay, we should transition more to Obi, and start thinking about moving on from Julius, which they should really, even now they should consider it, just because of the moves that they made, like committing to RJ, committing to Mitch, just the even though Julius isn't an old player, but I don't think he's like. I think he's a little bit out of that timeline. But anyway, my thing is, even if Julius is halfway decent, like you say, his contract is not bad. You know what I'm saying? Like there were talks about him signing a $200 million deal before he took the team friendly deal, So even if Julius is halfway decent, you could trade him somewhere where he'd be more beneficial to a team and, to himself.
Yeah, one of the last things I'll say on this is to rehash old stuff, but the framing of it as taking a team-friendly deal, I disagreed with, because Julius Randle, in my opinion, he just had the best year of his career, which came out of nowhere. And I think he locked the money in for what he could get at that time. He could have earned more in the next offseason, but he properly chose to cash in at that moment instead, because what happened? I'm sure he didn't expect to fall off like this, but if his renegotiation time was at the end of last season, he wasn't getting this money. He wasn't. So he made the right decision for himself and for his family to lock that money in. I personally don't think that it was so that the Knicks could afford to upgrade the roster around him, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like it's like my wanting to see Obi over Julius Randle has nothing to do with Julius Randle. It's just about the Knicks. I'm a diehard Knicks fan. I do what I can to be objective. I always mention my Obi bias, even if it's on Twitter. If I'm saying something that I think, is very skewed by my love for Obi, I'll say it. But I'm not alone in loving Obi. Obi, Top, and Chance are my current favorite thing at the Garden. And I hope we see more of him, but I'm just skeptical on how we get there. And so with that, do you have any final thoughts about the rotation? Anything that you think we should look out for? I thought we wouldn't have a lot to talk about, but I feel like we could also go on for hours. I just got this new Zoom where apparently I can record for 30 hours. So
yeah,
don't threaten us with a good time.
Just on, just guys. I just hope that it truly is whoever's performing best that gets to play. That's really what I hope we see moving forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to see guys just in there just because Thibs is comfortable. I want to see, the best players playing, whatever's best for the Knicks. That's what I want, Like, I don't want to see somebody playing well and, like just get sporadic minutes like we saw a lot last year. Like, like we mentioned in the beginning. Oh, Deuce McBride, I'm just going to use him as an example. Oh, yeah, if he continues to play well, he'll see more time on the court. I was at a bunch of Knicks press conferences. Like I was there live with Thibs, right after post games when a young guy would do well. And it's like, oh, yeah, he'll see more time if he continues to perform. Then he'll have 5 DMPs in a row. I don't want to see stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see change. And, hopefully we get what we want, more of what we want this season, more Obi, more Grimes, more Quick, and just the guys who are earning it the most, get rewarded. That's what I want.
I think that is a very reasonable thing to ask for. I think that most of our fans are in agreement with us. Fans of the team, fans of the Knicks Wall, followers of the Knicks Wall. I think we all want the same things. We really do. So we're going to get a lot of clarity once preseason begins, because the opening night preseason roster is going to tell us more about the Knicks rotation this season than any other team's opening night preseason roster will tell them about their rotation. That is the reality. There are positive things about Tibbs. I won't act like there aren't. We managed to be 12th in defense last year, even though it didn't look pretty. You know, Tibbs has his he has his merits, but does he have his merits for such a young team like this? I would say no. I'm not going to say I don't think so. I would just say no. And I have a very strong Johnny Bryant agenda. Aside from my Obi agenda, my number 2 agenda is, 65 in January. That's January 17th. Once again, that's retirement time, and it's Johnny Bryant time. And so, may this come true. Yeah. And so with that, we want to thank you for listening. And we want to tell you that the Knicks Wall Podcast will be a lot more regular this year. We're going to have a big time increase in the amount of content. We're going to keep giving you good content. And we hope that you will subscribe on whatever podcast player you use. And yeah, thank you once again for listening.
Thanks, guys.